Frangipani, Plumeria, Tiaré, Monoï, solar florals. At some point it gets plain overwhelming. Why do we need a legion of names for what often smells like a tropical fruit salad? And then banana, peach, coconut, cream, white petals, warm skin, gardenia, tuberose, jasmine, ylang ylang, vanilla, solar warmth, sunscreen, beach oil, temple flowers, skin musks. It sounds beautiful, but not exactly clear. Everything to everyone, almost. So I wanted to close the loop on my own vague understanding of Frangipani. What is it? What is it not? Is it the same as Plumeria or Tiaré? Is Monoï just another name for it? Why does ylang ylang keep showing up next to it or instead of it? And chemically speaking, why does a flower smell so much like fruit? Botany, chemistry, cultural codes, and the perfumes that make Frangipani creamy, radiant, oily, strange sometimes, or delicious. Let's decode the accord and review some of its best variations in fine perfumery. Before we get into the perfume, I want to clean up some language. Frangipani and Plumeria usually point to the same plant in perfume language. Plumeria is the botanical genus. Frangipani is the more romantic name. The name is often linked to the Italian Frangipani family and to the story of a 16th century marquise who made a perfumed glove fragrance that reminded people of the flower. Like many perfume origin stories, is it part history, part etymology, part gossip? But it explains why the word itself already feels like a perfume before we even smell the flower. So when a perfume says Frangipani, it usually means Plumeria. More precisely, the most perfume-relevant plumerias include Plumeria rubra, often called red Frangipani or common Frangipani, Plumeria alba, white Frangipani, and Plumeria obtusa, often called Singapore graveyard flower, or Singapore Plumeria. There are others, and there are many cultivated varieties too. This is why Frangipani is not one perfectly stable scent profile. It can smell through a variety of facets that we perceive that are similar to other things that exist. Even in the plant world, the scent profile can move around quite a bit. Then we have Tiaré. Tiaré is not Frangipani. Tiaré is Tahitian gardenia, Gardenia tahitensis. Different genus, different plant. The flower is usually white, smaller, and more gardenia-like than Plumeria, though they do sort of look similar. Same tropical white floral neighborhood, but not the same address. And then Monoï. Monoï is not even a flower. Monoï is an oil tradition. Tiaré flowers are infused into coconut oil, and that makes Monoï. So when the perfumery says Monoï, the idea is not just floral and not just this tropical, fruity, Tiaré-inspired plus coconut oil. It is coconut oil, skin, hair, sun, body care, warmth, and a very specific Polynesian beauty ritual. Monoï de Tahiti has also had an appellation of origin since 1992. Big deal. So this is not just a random beachy marketing word. There is a whole institute of Monoï. At this point, it would be reasonable to ask, if these things are so similar, why are they confused so often? Why do namesake fragrances make them smell so related? The key word here is solar. Frangipani, Tiaré, ylang ylang, gardenia, tuberose, jasmine, coconut, vanilla, musks. That is a core component, a very commonly found component of something that we call solar accords. They often get folded into the same family of tropical, fruity, creamy solar florals, if you've heard that term. They are not identical materials, but overlapping effects. We'll look into those manifestations in a minute. Botanically, Plumeria associated with warm climates, gardens, temples, cemeteries, resort landscapes, and places where flowers are not just a decoration, but they are part of a ritual about welcome, about memory, beauty, mourning. And this matters because Frangipani does not enter perfume as a neutral flower. Different groups of people have different encodings of what it represents. For somebody, it's a frivolous, ethereal, dreamy vacation escape. And for somebody, this is a deeply spiritual mourning ceremony. So it can be island life, heat of a beach vacation, could be harmonious spiritual ceremony. It can be many things, even death. So when Frangipani enters the world of commercial perfumery making, it kind of hits all those facets, often all at once. And the smell itself is not simple. Frangipani can feel creamy, waxy, fruity, spicy, floral, slightly green and citrusy, and even slightly animalic and narcotic. Sometimes almost like banana or peach, sometimes more like jasmine, or from a distance even as kind of gardenia or tuberose. So that fruit salad effect is not a failure of olfactory training. Just in case if you, just like me, felt rather confused and uninspired by Frangipani and perfumery before I had a chance to dive in, look no further. We're going to cover all the bases. So first of all, the fruit salad effect. It has actual biological underpinnings. It is part of the flower's trick. Plumeria flowers are famously fragrant, especially at night, but they do not offer nectar, as it turns out. Their scent attracts sphinx moths, which pollinate the flowers while searching for a reward that is not actually there. Plumeria doesn't have nectaries. Botanists describe this as pollination by deceit. So yes, Frangipani is a bit of a botanical love scammer, a very beautiful one. It advertises sweetness, it advertises nectar, it advertises flesh, it advertises abundance of nutrition. And then the moth comes and finds out the buffet is closed. A lot of tropical floral smells live in the overlap between white floral materials, creamy lactonic facets, and salicylate warmth, indolic floweriness, or sometimes even metallicness, and fruity esters. Nature, unfortunately, is rude like that. It does not organize itself for the convenience of marketers who compose perfume note pyramids. This is why it has been so confusing for people who explore perfumery, but at the same time so thrilling for the perfumers. Even a single molecule can smell creamy or peachy or banana-like or floral or sunscreen-like or unpleasantly oily, or several of those facets at once, single molecule, depending on what surrounds it. And this is why ylang ylang keeps showing up in this conversation. Ylang ylang already has that strange yellow floral richness, creamy, banana-like, spicy, even hard candy type of sweetness. Again, solar, a very complex, abstract genre, but we're making our way in trying to define its boundaries. And ylang ylang can go almost custard cream-like in some contexts. So if you are building a Frangipani accord, ylang ylang is an obvious accomplice. Natural Plumeria extracts do exist, including absolutes and other extraction methods like enfleurage, which is submerging flowers in fat and getting that to pull out aromatic ingredients. and you get this kind of semi-solid pomade or waxy material. But unfortunately, they are very expensive with low yields, and they're very difficult to standardize. So you can't guarantee the same quality of the substance, of the aromatic essence, harvest to harvest. So the flowers are very delicate, the yield is very limited, and the scent can really vary by species, cultivar, freshness, climate, weather that year, and also extraction method. So in most commercial perfumery, Frangipani is treated less as a raw material and more as a reconstructed accord. Jasmine gives it white floral body. Gardenia and tuberose give it creamy narcotic flower illusion. Vanilla gives softness and warmth, and coconut points it towards Monoï and more of a perceptive beachy vacation skin luscious mode. Musks give also longevity and certain skin lotion presence. Sandalwood gives creamy, milky facets and kind of rounds it up. Benzoin and balsams give golden sweetness and sometimes substantiated. If you want to make a gourmand with Frangipani as a heart accord. And yet, a lot of the time, to make a believable Frangipani accord, you need a lot of citrus. That surprised me. That the headspace of Frangipani actually contains a lot of fresh, green, citrus-like notes in it. So citruses can make Frangipani accord feel more flowy, luminous, less heavy, less buttery, and more transparent, gonna give it wings to fly. When we smell Frangipani, therefore, in perfume, we're usually not smelling one simple natural extract sitting politely in the alcohol base. We're smelling a constructed accord. At its best, it's a beautiful illusion. At its worst, it's a tropical powdered drink mix. And this is important because Frangipani is not one of those notes where everyone can point to the same familiar raw material or 3-4 molecules and say, here it is, case closed, we're done here. The perfumer in this case has choices. Do they make it creamy and innocent? Do they make it oily and beachy? Do they make it strange and waxy or spicy? Do they push the banana and ylang side to a full gourmand? Do they push the gardenia and tuberose side to make it more piercingly floral? Do they turn it into vanilla skin? Do they add more flowy ethereal citrus facets and make it almost into a Frangipani cologne? This is where the fun begins. This started a little bit like my lilac exploration. If you haven't seen my 2-part guide to all the lilac and perfumery, you can find it on my channel. Thank you so much for everyone who supported that very long review process and supplied me with some names and some samples that I've never tried before. So I assumed that Frangipani would be hard to find, just like lilacs. It's a beautiful flower, it's a famous name, but seemingly a rare perfume note. So I thought maybe 4 perfumes to talk about if I got lucky. But the more you dig, the more you find. There is probably 100 of known names who made Frangipani / Solar Florals plus Tiaré plus Monoï, some form of Frangipani weaved in with other notes. That would be Goutal Songes, Aran Hibiscus Palm, Van Cleef & Arpels California Reverie, Kenzo Armour, so many namesakes, Jo Malone Frangipani Flower, Laboratorio Frangipani, Narciso Rodriguez. Narciso, the Parfum Ambry actually contains Frangipani. there is Lush Frangipani, and dozens of others. So it is not exactly a massive mainstream category, but it's not empty either. It's a rich niche. It's a rich niche genre. And the interesting thing, this is not just who makes the prettiest Frangipani, as we discussed. The interesting thing is how differently perfumers build this illusion. Let's start with Serge Lutens. Serge Lutens, La dompteuse encagée. This was released in 2021, fairly recent, it's in the 20s. And this is a very Serge Lutens-esque perfume. If you like Serge Lutens creations, it will be a comfort zone for you. And here we see an incarnation of Frangipani Accord with almond. Perfumers Christopher Sheldrake in collaboration with the creative director Serge Lutens himself. Indeed, the listed structure is unusually spare: Frangipani, ylang ylang, almond, that's it. This one is interesting because it avoids the obvious coconut and monoï direction. No beachy lotion here. Instead, you get Frangipani with ylang ylang and almond, and the almond detail matters because it can pull white floral accord into something a little bit more bitter, powdery, waxy, lactonic, even slightly unripe. And instead of making it purely creamy and sunny, the structure gives it a stranger edge. Technically, it's a good example of how Frangipani Accord can be tropical without becoming a vacation perfume. That's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it memorable, in my view. That said, I want to say that this is probably, it's hard for me to place it as the number one, but definitely top 3 of all the Frangipani Accords I've ever tried, because it walks the fine line between being semi-sweet but not a gourmand, yellow solar floral, very Frangipani-esque. It's a very, to me, naturalistic take on Frangipani, but it's pulled out into the world of high perfumery enough that you don't feel that the hyper-realism of the flower, it can make it boring. And this walks that fine line with honor, with a lot of dignity. I love it. I use it quite a bit. Definitely something that I would recommend as a starting point for your Frangipani exploration. Next one inspired this whole episode. I put my greedy little fingers on Gucci A Chant for the Nymph. Released in 2020, perfumer Alberto Morillas, who is the king of luxurious, kind of hard luxury golden perfumes. I got myself 50 ml. Commonly listed structure here is very focused: Frangipani, Tiaré, ylang ylang, vanilla, and notably honey. This honey plus pollen gives this such a unusually textured and yet soft gourmand blending. This saturates all of the gourmand aspects of this solar florals to the point of being an apologetic gourmand with some Frangipani floral aspect. But what I love about A Chant for the Nymph is that it doesn't get sticky. Often tropical sweet dessert plus floral collapses on the skin into something sticky and syrupy sweet. A Chant for the Nymph doesn't. It rather melts into a very soft, honeyed cloud. It is still a gourmand, but it has this very soft, nudie, skin-like dry down, and I love it. I love it for that particular facet. I'm not even a big fan of honey accord in perfumery, but this is where, for me, it surpasses Zoologist Bee and many other honey-centric perfumes. This combination of honey sweetness with Frangipani is pure perfection, and it's definitely a very happy purchase for me. I also love that this is a great example where the whole confusion is put directly on the table, and it justifies mine and hopefully for many of you the kind of gaslighting that happens when you try to find a difference, a notable, clear, well-defined separation between Tiaré, ylang, Frangipani, and Monoï. This is all there, and I would still dare say, if not for the more of a gourmand aspect and gravitas of A Chant for the Nymph, these are very close. Very close. Yet Serge Lutens' Le dompteuse, encagée doesn't mention any of those other facets. Who knows what molecules are actually there? I would say they're very close, but to me this is a more pure take on floral, and this is all of the solar honeyed beauty of Frangipani, Tiaré, ylang, of all of them. This is the solar floral hymn. This is the paragon of how solar florals should smell. Also a really great example of Frangipani represented as a resort tropical luxury perception. So A Chant for the Nymph, if you want that kind of fantasy, it's a really good option. Vanori, Sylvaine Delacourte, a niche offering not many people know about. I adore Vanori. It was a very lucky blind buy for me. Released in 2018, according to listings in the perfume databases. It was a collaboration between Sylvaine Delacourte and Irene Farmacidi, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. The listed notes are bourbon vanilla, grapefruit, beeswax, styrax, jasmine, pink pepper, honey, sandalwood. That is not that helpful. Let me explain what it actually smells like. This is an ethereal Frangipani. It's a Frangipani dipped into the cloud of vanilla ice cream. Frangipani here becomes less of a tropical flower in the air and more of a golden floral material inside a souffle vanilla ice cream base. This is useful because it shows another important route. Frangipani does not have to become beachy or overtly dessert gourmand-like. It can become a soft nude skin with tropical floral echoes. Romantic, creative, unusual. I highly recommend, if you can find it, that you try yourself some Vanori by Sylvaine Delacourte. Very unusual take on Frangipani and vanilla at the same time. Next, Laboratorio Olfattivo Baliflora. Released in 2019, perfumer Claude Ellena, and he over-delivered. Claude Ellena is known for his watercolory but very legible, flowy, breathable compositions. And he spent his whole career slowly but surely arriving at that style that he's famous for. He has made iconic perfumes for a mess. My favorite citrus in the whole world, Bigarade Concentré for Frédéric Malle. And when I saw that Baliflora had oceanic mineral accords and Frangipani, I was sold instantly. Baliflora mixes skin like musk, Frangipani, jasmine, lily, lotus, mandarin, orange blossom, and geranium. I don't feel much of a geranium here, but perception-wise, now it's a very different construction on Frangipani accord. Forget pungent yellow facets, forget honeyed gourmands. Instead, Frangipani here is placed inside a citrus salty, breezy composition, and mandarin and orange blossom give it a bit of a lift and a little bit of a heart. Lotus and lily can make it more watery, a little bit more watercolory and transparent. Jasmine supports the white floral heart, and musk gives it longevity on the skin. It's a good example of a citrusy green, transparent spectrum of constructing a Frangipani accord. And Claude Ellena, for him, I would expect the interest to be less about density and more about space. More like a thin, tropical breeze passing through white petals. I adore Baliflora. It is my top 3 Frangipani scents. Even though it is a very different take on this floral accord. Ormonde Jayne Frangipani. Namesake fragrance, very well known. This is an earlier creation. It dates to 2003. And to my knowledge, this is an attempt at creating a maybe not hyper-realistic, but very realistic Frangipani representation. To my knowledge, it was a partnership between the perfumer Gezachon and the founder of Ormonde Jayne, Linda Pilkington. And the description includes the foundational notes of lime, linden blossom, which I do detect here, magnolia, frangipani, water lily, plum, tuberose, musk, vanilla, amber cedar as a base. This one is important because it shows the fruity floral route very clearly. It is often referred to as the iconic, very realistic, believable Frangipani scent profile. And maybe it is so. I'm not an expert on the headspace of how actual varieties of Plumeria smell like. However, to me, it sits very confidently in the florals. There is no watery, watercolory texture that you can find in Baliflora. There's not this ethereal souffle, heart and vanilla base that you can find in Vanori. It is not a gourmand like Chant of the Nymph, Chant for the Nymph. But oddly enough, for me, La Dame Tu Encagée is more believable Frangipani scent than Ormonde Jayne Frangipani. This to me, it smells like a typical designer floral perfume. Maybe because it was created in 2003, to me it just screams Ulta, Sephora, some of those department store staples, floral staples. It's a bit boring to my taste. It's not my favorite. But it has high regards in perfume community. If you are looking for an entrance to Frangipani accord construction. And an honorary mention, Rag & Bone Monoï. Since we do get a lot of crossover and confusion, it's not really confusion, similarities. These are actual similarities in the perception space between Frangipani, Tiaré, Monoï, ylang, and many, many other solar florals and fruity and lactonic gourmand notes and ingredients. Rag & Bone Monoï is nearly my favorite coconut scent, because this is quietly spicy without giving me any peppery or kitchen spices. It has this confident, quiet, peaceful attitude. It's not exactly Tiaré / Frangipani / tropical fruity accord, but it also is not sunscreen coconut or vanilla coconut that we're so used to. in the mainstream perfumery. It is not your typical coconut, and for that I love it. That said, some perfumes that list coconut often list Frangipani too, and I don't really find them to be centered around Frangipani. This is one honorary mention. Just to add on top of that, Sydney Rock Pool by Arquiste mentions coconut in Frangipani, but to my nose, everything gets overshadowed by pungent contemporary mineral accord that has a softer, semi-sweet coconut landing at the end. However, I do not detect Frangipani here anywhere to be found, and I do get quite a bit of it perceptually in the Rag & Bone Monoï. So I would recommend it as both a representative of the genre, but more in the sunscreen, nude, cuddly version of Frangipani Accord and the Solar Floral. This is what I love about perfumery. You can talk about a particular inspiration, a flower. You can talk about a genus, or you can talk about a perceptive cloud of many ingredients and facets that come together to create a very similar vibe. And you can shift little by little to a whole another universe. With Rag & Bone Monoï, it is a tropical resort. It's a vacation, going to a luxury spa. It's a cosmetic memory of a luxurious, almost over-the-top tropical vacation. And that's a different design problem from reconstructing Tiaré, Plumeria. The Monoï perfume does not have this to smell like a fresh flower. That's not the point. And yet, it is that beautiful emotional transition between nature and personal experience, personal memory. So, these examples give us a practical spectrum. At one end, Baliflora, citrus, musk, Frangipani, transparency, solar, floral, air. Then, La Dompteuse encagée, ylang and almond, more yellow floral, sharper, no beach, no gourmand, a beautiful take on a bright, vivacious Frangipani. But then, A Chant for the Nymph by Gucci, Frangipani, Tiaré, ylang, vanilla, honey, the saturated tropical floral dessert. Then, Vanori, Frangipani pulled into a vanilla cloud and sandalwood ethereal souffle all wrapped together. And a realistic Frangipani in Ormonde Jayne, and then Monoï, the skin that the tropical floral envelops. Even though it's not exactly devoted to Plumeria, it does smell within the same vicinity, with the Tiaré and a coconut and the fruity floral tropical tradition. It sits very close to Frangipani in perception. I hope I managed to illustrate that Frangipani is more interesting than a simple floral flower note. If you want to sniff it for yourself, check the links below. To my knowledge, I assembled the only niche Frangipani perfume sample available online, so I'm very happy and proud that I pulled it together for you. Check it out. It is also a great way to support what I do at Perfume Nation Podcast. A lot of work goes into every episode, and I hope you enjoy it. If you do, give this video a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.